Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Thursday, March 6th. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, Mark brought up a great question. Is there money in becoming a parts distributor? And how much money do you need to even start? So, what we're going to do on this video is we're going to break it down from the top right down to the peon. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Thursday, March 6th. So what are we actually talking about? We're going to discuss the breakdowns from the top to what I describe as most repair shops being the peons. And the peons get peed on the most. Alright? But you have to understand the hierarchy of everything to really get a grasp on it. And I didn't until I started climbing those ladders, right? And what doors open for me and what doors shut. So this is all being based off, and it's a very good question mark, of is there money in becoming a distributor? And the thing is I think that's the misnomer, is how the system is set up. And your top dog is the manufacturer, right? So they control specs on stuff. Most of their stuff is still being made in China. They have more quality controls in place. But in order to become a distributor for them, you had to carry not hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking millions of dollars. And not just 1 million, a lot of millions to even think about being a distributor for a manufacturer. And it used to be that the manufacturer would give that distributor rights to certain territories. And that's still somewhat the case, all right? So each distributor can handle more than one brand. And a distributor may have a contract with Briggs, with Kohler, Hydrogear, Tecumseh. And then another distributor may also be a Briggs, Kohler, and a lot of your aftermarkets. But the top level distributors are the ones that are now buying those parts, right? And they're given territories, guaranteed sales, if things continue the way they're supposed to go. And then from your distributor, it can go to smaller distributors that have territories. And then it finally goes to the dealers. And then from the dealers, it goes out to the public. All right? So that's your hierarchy. Manufacturer, top level distributor, secondary distributor, sometimes third level distributor, and then dealers, and then last but not least, the general public. Now, with understanding that hierarchy, what I learned very quickly was the mid-level and the lower-level distributors weren't giving you the best price. And when I say they aren't giving you the best price, is when I started doing volume sales. They weren't giving me enough in the way of profit. And what I did is I went to the second layer. Your top layer, manufacturer, top layer, secondary layer, third. I went to the secondary level. And I said, look, I'm buying X number of parts per year, OEM and aftermarket. Can we do something? And by then, I was doing a couple 100,000. And that was more than some of their secondary and third were actually doing for the year. And I was doing that in months. So they were all, yes, come to us, and we will supply you and give you a better price. We'll give you the price that we're giving the next layer of distributors. All right, so now I'm getting the same price as the distributor that feeds most dealers. I work my way up the chain. And now I've gotten to the secondary. Now I'm doing 500 grand. And I know the only way I can get the best price is to get to that top level distributor that's covering the Northeast. How can I reach out to them? And I did just that. I got a hold of the corporate CFO, sent him a letter, an email, and said, look, this is what we're doing in volume in a month. We're not getting the best price. We've moved our way from the secondary or the third layer to the secondary, and I need to get better margins. And I can guarantee you this number in sales. And of course, looking at the numbers, they gave me a trial to see, is he full of it or is he really doing it? And I started dealing with the top level distributors. And what I learned is if they see you making a lot of money for them, they will talk to you. You can't come in with an idea. You have to come in with facts. This is what we're making. This is what we're selling per month. You can either join us or I'll go somewhere else. And that's how I posed it. I didn't want it to come across as a threat, but if you can't do it for me, I'm going somewhere else. I don't need to sell Briggs parts online. I'll just switch over and sell all Kohler and dominate that market because the Kohler distributors have given me the green light to deal with them. You see what I mean? But you'll never make it to the manufacturer. Maybe I shouldn't say never, but you might have 5 distributors in the U.S. for that manufacturer. And each one of them is covering a certain area. And each one of them is covering more than just one product line. They're not simply just with Briggs. They're usually carrying Briggs, Kohler, Honda. Well, not so much Honda. Honda is kind of their own little wing out there. Hard to deal with. But to come see, the list goes on. All right? So, where's the problem now? And what is the problem now? Well, the problem now is trying to get any parts for machines that are older than a few years old. Because the manufacturer has discontinued making those parts. Why is that? Well, it's not to make people buy new every couple of years. I mean, it's not a bad idea or a bad concept if you can force someone to buy a brand new product. But they were making a ton more on their parts than they were the new product. That's where their money was. I knew that's where the money was. It used to be that if you were in the car sales, and even the lawn and garden, you swapped, you took a trade, and your money was in that trade. When you sold that trade that traded in that mower or that car or whatever, the truck, that's where you made your most money. And even today, most car dealerships with the older models, if they're not late model, low miles on them, they have somebody that buys them on the spot the minute they take it as a trade. And what most dealers do, car dealers, is they will call their guys that do buy from them, the used, the older stuff, and say, what would you give me for this? And that way they know going into the deal, they are going to get this much out of that vehicle. Not a dime more, not a dime less. This is how much we're going to get. And then they can do the deal and have you walk out the door with a brand new set of car keys for that vehicle. Lawn and garden used to be the same way. You took in a trade because you had the people that really couldn't afford or didn't want to buy brand new. They were just as content with a good used model. So you took the trade knowing that you could make your money on what the trade-in was. But things started to change in the markets. And why do I say changed? I mean, I started seeing the writing on the wall when our sales quit going up. I'm like, what's going on? Why are we not gaining momentum? We gain momentum every month, every year, you know. We're doing 200,000 to 300,000 more every year from the prior year. And then I started noticing more people selling on eBay and Amazon, which we had, but we also had two of our own websites that we sold through, e-commerce sites. We don't anymore. I got rid of them. We just have a website for the business. But I'll get to why I got rid of them. So I started seeing more competition. And I'm thinking, well, that's why it's not rising. And what I was watching was I was watching a lot of new guys trying to sell their parts online because they weren't selling it local. By then, a lot of people had started shopping online and were trying to buy the parts they needed on eBay or Amazon. Those were the two sites that if you wanted to reach the most audience, that's where you needed to be. And you didn't want to be there just price alone. We carried top rated status, you know, with 99 point something for feedback scores. And when it comes to feedback, you know, even when it comes to Google reviews and stuff like that, the only ones going to give you a good review are the ones that are ecstatic and love what you did for them, above and beyond. And the only other review you're going to get is the pissed off customer because they didn't get or couldn't get from you what they wanted. And that was more than what was promised in most cases. So your reviews and your feedback are always going to be the ecstatic one that you gave more than what he should have got, or the one that's pissed off because he didn't get out of you what he wanted to get. So we started watching the sales not plummet, but started flatlining. So I started seeing other companies, I mean, these were companies that were taking our photos, our descriptions, right down to having it say Northern New York in the description, because they were having people from overseas look at every listing I had and copy it verbatim and put it on their listing site on eBay or Amazon at just below the price. Sometimes 10 cents, sometimes 2 cents. But they always tried to stay below. And on Amazon, you knew what your competitor's price was. That was the easy one. So you could play that race to the bottom, which I never did, or take a loss on some of the sales. And what I found over on Amazon, to be totally honest with you, Amazon was one of my biggest competitors. If they saw you selling an item, a lot of them, they would find your supplier and start selling that at below what you're selling it for. Because they went to that source and negotiated a price for X number of them and got a better price. So the real demise in why you're seeing or the manufacturers are only selling or carrying a product for 2 years through their distributors is eBay and Amazon, because they so much wanted to sell in China and to the Chinese people in that market, that they were hoping or thinking they were going to get reciprocal if they allowed China and their millions of sellers into our markets. They would get reciprocal. They would get all the customers and sellers and buyers, and they could get into China's market. To this day, we are not allowed in China's market, but yet these two big companies, eBay and Amazon, still allow them to sell in our markets. And hopefully with Trump, I'm not pro or for or against, but I'm all for the tariffs of raising the cost from China in. Is it going to raise the cost of the stuff here in the U.S.? Yeah, but it's also going to raise your pocket. Better jobs, more people employed, the list goes on. So here's what happened. Thank God we had most of our inventory cleared out. And that's when I shut down the 2 e-commerce stores that we had. And at the time, I continued at eBay, Amazon, Sears, Walmart, just to name the top brands of where we sold our product through, that allowed us to be sellers on their platforms for a fee. But now we had the onslaught of China coming into the markets and saying, okay, we're bottom tier, top tier, however you want to look at it. But now they're the manufacturers selling directly to the consumer. What have you done? You knocked the manufacturer, the distributors, the dealers, all of them got hit. And all of them got stuck with parts. Do you still have the ones that still want OEM parts? Yes, but they don't want to pay the OEM price. Because, I'll be honest with you, I still got carburetors that are OEM Homelite carburetors. This sold for $68 to $78, the small ones, right? And you can buy it on eBay for $6.99, free shipping, comes with gaskets, comes with fuel filters, comes with new fuel lines. I can't compete on that level. And what ended up happening was the distributors got stuck the most because they had all that inventory of parts sitting, and no dealers and smaller distributors were willing to take their parts because the dealers were unable to sell the parts that they had. By then, most people had transitioned over to online was safe for the most part. And why should I can do it right from home, have it shipped right to my doorstep. I don't have to travel to the closest dealer. I don't have to wait a week for most cases. Now it's not like that, because if you order a part from a Chinese seller, it could be weeks out. And what you end up finding was a lot of the older parts, because the distributors dumped this stuff to get rid of it or scrapped it and took a loss. The manufacturers only started producing for like 2 to 3 years out of parts, because they knew that once the 2 or 3 year mark hit, the Chinese would be trying to peddle the same parts for a lot less. They were on to China, knowing that, but they still didn't pull out, folks. They still are there. But if they start a new product line, through their plants in China, a sister plant would do the same retooling a short time later. But they had that jump on the Chinese of being firstest with the mostest, and they knew that it was just a matter of time, and the Chinese would be selling the same part against them on the venues. So that's why when you need parts, you either get no longer available on back order because the manufacturer isn't holding on to parts for that long. Because they know what the end result's going to be. China's going to come in and decimate that market. So I hope that's kind of made it more reasonable to understand how the markets are and what levels you are when you're a dealer. Now there are levels within dealers. That's a whole different playing field. Like if you're a Briggs dealer and you're floor planning and stuff, you can go all the way up to I think it's diamond level. But that's within that territory. That distributor could be third level, dealing with the manufacturer offering you a little better price. But I guarantee you, if you could get to the second level distributor, you could do better than what you did with the third level. And the same goes to if you got to the first level versus the third level. You'll never get to the manufacturer unless you sell hundreds of millions of dollars of parts per year. And then you can show them that you can carry the product line. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll see you here bright and early tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for watching.